My sister borrowed my car and accidentally dented it. Her apology? You're too anal about your stuff anyway. I don't think of myself as a materialistic person. I've never been one to obsess over brand names or the latest gadgets. But there is one thing I've always taken special care of, my car. It's not even an expensive one, just a 2015 Honda Civic that I bought used 3 years ago after saving for what felt like forever. It's my first real car that I paid for entirely on my own, and I take pride in keeping it clean, maintained, and in good condition. My sister, Rebecca, has always been the opposite. She treats her belongings with a carelessness that makes me wince. Her car is perpetually filled with fast food wrappers, empty coffee cups, and whatever else accumulates when you never clean. The outside looks like it's never seen a car wash, and there are so many dents and scratches that a new one wouldn't even be noticeable. That's just how she is, and I've accepted that. Last Thursday, Rebecca called me in a panic. Her car wouldn't start, and she needed to get to an important job interview across town. Public transportation would take too long, and rideshare prices were surging because of some local event. She begged to borrow my car, promising she would be careful with it and return it in perfect condition. Against my better judgment, I agreed. She was my sister, after all, and this interview was a big opportunity for her. "Thank you so much, Jake. I swear I'll be super careful with it," she said, practically bouncing with relief as I handed her the keys. "Just please don't eat in it, and park far away from other cars," I reminded her, trying not to sound too much like a paranoid car parent. She rolled her eyes but nodded. "Yes, Dad, I'll take good care of your precious baby." When she returned that evening, I was in the middle of a work call and couldn't go down to the parking lot to get my keys back. She dropped them on my kitchen counter with a quick, "Thanks again," before rushing out. It wasn't until the next morning that I went down to check on my car. That's when I saw it. A massive dent on the passenger side door, with a deep scratch running through the paint. This wasn't a little ding, this was the kind of damage that would cost serious money to repair. I immediately called Rebecca. "Oh, that," she said casually when I described the damage. "Yeah, I might have bumped into a pole in the parking garage. But honestly, Jake, it's just a car. You're too anal about your stuff anyway." I was speechless. Not only had she damaged my car after promising to be careful, but she didn't even have the decency to tell me about it or apologize properly. Instead, she was making me feel like I was the unreasonable one for being upset. "Rebecca, this is going to cost hundreds to fix," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Well, I don't have hundreds right now," she replied. "I'm between jobs, remember? That's why the interview was so important. Maybe your insurance will cover it?" "My insurance has a $500 deductible, and my premiums would go up," I explained. "You should have told me as soon as it happened." "Look, I'm sorry, okay? But it's not like I did it on purpose. Accidents happen. You're making too big a deal out of this." That conversation set the tone for what would become one of the most frustrating situations I've ever experienced with my sister. What started as a dented car quickly revealed much deeper issues between us, issues I had probably been ignoring for years. After that initial call, Rebecca started avoiding me. My texts asking about when she could contribute to the repair costs went unanswered for days. When she finally did respond, it was with excuses about how broke she was and how I should understand her situation. Our parents got involved when I mentioned the incident during a family dinner. "Jake, you know your sister is struggling financially," my mom said. "Maybe you could just let this one go? Family is more important than material things." "It's not about the car itself," I tried to explain. "It's about responsibility. She borrowed something that matters to me, damaged it, didn't tell me, and now won't take responsibility for fixing it." My dad sighed. "Rebecca has always been a free spirit. She doesn't see things the way you do. Maybe you could split the cost? Meet her halfway?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why was I being asked to meet halfway on damage that was entirely not my fault? If I had borrowed something of hers and damaged it, I would have immediately taken responsibility and figured out how to make it right. 2 days later, Rebecca showed up at my apartment unannounced. I thought maybe she had come to apologize properly or work out a payment plan. Instead, she had a different agenda. "I got the job," she announced excitedly as she walked in. "We're celebrating tonight. A bunch of us are going to that new rooftop bar downtown. You should come." I stared at her, wondering if she was seriously ignoring the elephant in the room. "That's great about the job. Does this mean you can start paying for the car repair?" Her smile faltered. "Jake, seriously? That's your response to my good news? This job doesn't even start for 2 weeks, and the first paycheck won't come until after that. I thought you'd be happy for me. I am happy for you, I said. But I'm also still dealing with a dented car that you caused. She threw her hands up. Oh my God, you're still on that? It's just a dent. Your car still drives, doesn't it? I don't know why you're making such a huge deal about this. You know what? Forget I invited you. You'd probably just bring down the mood anyway. After she left, I sat on my couch feeling like I was taking crazy pills. Was I really being unreasonable here? I decided to get some outside perspective and called my best friend, Mark. Dude, you're not wrong, Mark assured me after I explained the situation. She borrowed your car, damaged it, didn't tell you, and is now making you feel bad for being upset about it. That's not cool. His validation helped, but I was still stuck with a damaged car and a sister who seemed to think I was overreacting. The body shop quoted me $780 for the repair, money I had been saving for a weekend trip I'd been planning for months. But I couldn't leave my car damaged. Every time I saw that dent, it reminded me of my sister's carelessness and lack of respect for my property. The next day, I texted Rebecca, now that you have a job lined up, can we make a plan for you to pay for the car repair? Even if it's in installments once you start getting paychecks. Her response came hours later, I'll think about it. But honestly, Jake, you make more money than me anyway. Can't you just handle it? It's what family does. That was the moment something snapped in me. Yes, I made more money than Rebecca, but that was because I had worked hard, made responsible choices, and lived within my means. I had roommates to save on rent while she insisted on living alone in a trendy neighborhood. I cooked most of my meals at home while she ate out almost every day. I saved for big purchases while she bought things on credit and worried about the bills later. I decided not to respond to her text. Instead, I paid for the repair myself and tried to move on. But something had fundamentally changed in how I viewed my relationship with my sister. A week later, Rebecca called me again. My stomach tightened as I answered, expecting another request. Hey Jake, can I borrow your apartment next Saturday? I want to host a dinner for some friends from my new job, but my place is too small. I promise we'll clean up afterward. The audacity was breathtaking. After everything that had happened, she was asking to borrow something else from me as if nothing had happened. No, I said simply. No? Just like that? Why not? She sounded genuinely confused. Because the last time I lent you something, you damaged it, didn't tell me, refused to pay for repairs, and made me feel like I was being unreasonable for being upset about it. Are you seriously still mad about the car thing? I told you I'm sorry. What do you want from me? I wanted you to take responsibility, Rebecca. You didn't. Actions have consequences. One of those consequences is that I'm not comfortable lending you things anymore. Wow, she said. I never thought my own brother would be so petty. It's just a stupid car, Jake. It's not about the car, I said for what felt like the 100th time. It's about respect. She hung up on me. Within minutes, my phone was blowing up with text messages from my parents. Apparently, Rebecca had called them in tears, telling them I was being cruel to her over one tiny mistake. My mom's message made my heart sink. We raised you to be more forgiving than this, Jake. Family should come first. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to think about everything. Was I being too harsh? Was this really worth damaging my relationship with my sister? Part of me wanted to just give in, to keep the peace and go back to how things were before. But another part of me, a part that was growing stronger by the day, knew that going back to the status quo would just mean more of the same behavior from Rebecca. That evening, I wrote a long email to my parents explaining my perspective in detail. I told them about the dent, about Rebecca's dismissive reaction, about her refusal to take responsibility, and about how this wasn't an isolated incident but part of a pattern that had been going on for years. I explained that I wasn't cutting her off or disowning her, I just needed to establish some boundaries to protect myself and my property. Their response was mixed. My dad seemed to understand where I was coming from, even if he still hoped we could work things out. My mom, however, couldn't see past the idea that family should always forgive each other, no matter what. She's your little sister, she wrote back. Sometimes being the bigger person means letting things go. For the next couple of weeks, things were tense. Rebecca told mutual friends that I was being controlling and materialistic. Some of them actually took her side, telling me I should cut her some slack. Others, who had witnessed Rebecca's behavior firsthand over the years, understood my position better. Meanwhile, I was finding a strange sense of peace in holding my ground. For years, I had been the responsible one who picked up the slack, made excuses for Rebecca, and bent over backward to accommodate her. Standing up for myself felt foreign but surprisingly liberating. 3 weeks after our argument, Rebecca texted me out of nowhere. My first paycheck came in. I can give you $200 toward the car repair. That's all I can afford right now. It wasn't the full amount, and it came without an apology or acknowledgement of how her actions had affected me. But it was something. I accepted the money and thanked her, hoping maybe this was a first step toward her taking more responsibility. 2 days later, she called me with another request. Jake, can you help me move some furniture this weekend? I found this amazing vintage dresser on Facebook Marketplace, but I need someone with a car to help me pick it up. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no on principle. But another part wondered if this might be an opportunity to repair our relationship. I can help, I said finally. But Rebecca, we need to talk about what happened. Really talk, not just brush it over. She was quiet for a moment. Okay, she agreed. We can talk. That Saturday, I picked her up and drove to the address where the dresser was being sold. On the way there, Rebecca actually initiated the conversation I'd been wanting to have. Look, I know I should have told you about the dent right away, she admitted, staring out the window rather than looking at me. I was embarrassed and worried you'd be mad, so I just didn't say anything. That was wrong. It wasn't a full apology, but it was more acknowledgement than I'd gotten so far. Thank you for saying that, I said. And yes, I would have been upset, but I would have been a lot less upset if you had been upfront about it. I know that now, she said. I'm not good with confrontation. I tend to avoid it until things blow up, which usually makes everything worse. Yeah, it does, I agreed. And when you dismissed my feelings about the car, calling me anal about my stuff. That really hurt, Rebecca. It made me feel like you don't respect the things that matter to me. She was quiet for a long moment. I guess I was trying to make myself feel better by making it seem like you were overreacting. That wasn't fair. She paused again. I'm sorry, Jake. For the dent, for how I handled it, for everything. It was the apology I had been waiting for. Not perfect, perhaps a little late, but it felt sincere. Thank you, I said. That means a lot. We picked up the dresser in relative silence, working together to navigate the awkward, heavy piece of furniture into the back of my car. As we drove to her apartment, Rebecca spoke up again. I know $200 isn't the full amount for the repair. I'm going to pay you back the rest, I promise. Maybe $100 from each of my next few paychecks? That would be great, I said, genuinely surprised and pleased that she had come up with this plan on her own. When we arrived at her apartment, I helped her carry the dresser up to her third-floor walk-up. It was exhausting work, and we were both sweaty and out of breath by the time we finished. Thanks for helping me with this, she said, offering me a glass of water. I know you probably didn't want to after everything. You're still my sister, I said. I'm still here for you. I just need you to understand that respecting boundaries is part of having a healthy relationship. She nodded slowly. I'm trying to be better about that. Not just with you, but in general. My therapist says I have issues with taking responsibility. She gave a small laugh. Which, obviously. You're seeing a therapist? This was news to me. Started a couple weeks ago, she admitted. After our fight. I realized there might be some stuff I need to work on. That admission hit me hard. Maybe our conflict had actually led to something positive, my sister taking steps to address some of her deeper issues. Over the next month, things between Rebecca and I slowly improved. She made good on her promise to pay me back in installments, and I noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She would ask before borrowing things, return them promptly, and generally seemed more considerate of other people's boundaries. It wasn't perfect, old habits die hard, and there were still moments when the old Rebecca would shine through, making excuses, trying to get out of obligations, expecting others to pick up her slack. But the difference was that now, when I called her out on these behaviors, she would, usually, acknowledge them rather than getting defensive. 2 months after the car incident, my parents hosted a family dinner. I was admittedly a bit nervous about how things would go, given the tension that had existed between all of us. But to my surprise, my mom pulled me aside early in the evening. I owe you an apology, she said, her voice low so others couldn't hear. I always made excuses for Rebecca because I thought I was protecting her. But seeing how she's changed these past few weeks, maybe what she really needed was for someone to hold her accountable. She's still Rebecca, I said with a small smile. She's still going to be impulsive and a bit chaotic. That's just who she is. But there's a difference between being free-spirited and being inconsiderate. Mom nodded. Your father and I enabled a lot of her behavior over the years. We're trying to be better about that. During dinner, Rebecca announced that she had been promoted at her new job already. They said they were impressed with my initiative and reliability, she said, shooting me a meaningful look. Apparently showing up on time and meeting deadlines consistently makes you stand out. Who knew? Everyone laughed, and I felt a genuine sense of pride for my sister. She was growing, changing, becoming more responsible, not because anyone had forced her to, but because she had chosen to. Later that evening, as I was helping clean up in the kitchen, Rebecca approached me with an envelope. "What's this?" I asked as she handed it to me. "The final payment for the car repair," she said. "Plus a little extra for your trouble." I opened the envelope to find $380 in cash, the remaining balance plus an additional $100. "Rebecca, the extra isn't necessary," I started to say. She held up her hand. "It is necessary. Not just for you, but for me. I need to make this right. Completely right." I was touched by the gesture, but more than that, I was impressed by the growth it represented. "Thank you," I said simply. "Thank you for not letting me off the hook," she replied. As annoying as it was at the time, I needed someone to hold me accountable. As I drove home that night, I reflected on everything that had happened since that fateful day I found the dent in my car. What had started as a simple case of property damage had evolved into something much more significant, a turning point in my relationship with my sister, a chance for both of us to grow and establish healthier boundaries. My car now looked good as new. The dent and scratch had been repaired, the paint touched up perfectly. But the real repair had happened between Rebecca and me. Our relationship wasn't perfect, no relationship ever is, but it was stronger, healthier, and built on a foundation of mutual respect that hadn't been there before. Update, 6 months later. It's been just over 6 months since the car incident with Rebecca, and I thought I'd share how things have evolved since then. First, thank you all for the supportive comments on my original post. Reading your perspectives really helped me feel less crazy during that confusing time. Rebecca has continued to surprise me with her growth. She's still at the job she got right after our argument, and she's thriving there. Last month she was put in charge of training new hires, which is a big responsibility that the old Rebecca would have probably struggled with. We hang out regularly now, usually once a week for coffee or dinner. Our conversations have changed too, there's more depth to them. Last week she actually brought up the car incident on her own. "You know, that fight we had about your car was probably the best thing that could have happened to me," she said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "Really?" "Because it was pretty miserable at the time," I replied. She laughed. "Oh, it was awful. I was so mad at you. But it was the first time someone actually held me accountable instead of making excuses for me or cleaning up my mess. It was the wake-up call I needed." "I'm glad something good came out of it," I said. "But I hope we never have to go through anything like that again." "Me too," she agreed. "My therapist says I had gotten used to being the family screw-up. Like it was my identity or something. Breaking that pattern is hard, but worth it." The most surprising change has been in how our parents interact with Rebecca. They've stopped automatically taking her side in disputes and have started expecting the same level of responsibility from her that they always expected from me. It's created a much healthier dynamic for all of us. As for me, I've learned a lot about setting boundaries and sticking to them, even when it's uncomfortable. I've applied this to other relationships in my life with positive results. There was a friend who constantly borrowed money and never paid it back. I finally addressed it directly, and we now have a much more balanced friendship. "Oh, and my car? Still dent-free. Rebecca actually borrowed it again last month when hers was in the shop." "Yes," I agreed after some consideration. Not only did she return it in perfect condition, but she also filled up the gas tank as a thank you. Small gesture, but it meant a lot. Don't get me wrong, Rebecca is still Rebecca. She's still more spontaneous than I am, still occasionally runs late, still sometimes makes impulsive decisions. But the key difference is that she owns those choices now instead of expecting others to accommodate them or fix any resulting problems. I think the biggest lesson for me has been that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone isn't to give them what they want or make their problems disappear, it's to hold them to a higher standard because you believe they're capable of meeting it. Update, 1 year later. It's hard to believe it's been a full year since the car incident that changed my relationship with my sister. So much has happened that I wanted to share a final update. First, Rebecca is doing amazing. She was promoted to assistant manager at her job 3 months ago. When she called to tell me the news, she said something that really stuck with me. "A year ago, I wouldn't have even been considered for this position because nobody would have trusted me with that much responsibility. Including myself." Our relationship has never been better. We still have our differences, we're very different people with different approaches to life, but now there's a foundation of mutual respect that makes navigating those differences so much easier. The most unexpected development came about 2 months ago. Rebecca called me out of the blue on a Tuesday evening. "Jake, I need your advice on something," she said, her voice serious. "What's up?" I asked, immediately concerned by her tone. "I've been saving up for a while now, and I think I'm ready to buy a car. A good one, not another beater. But I don't know anything about car buying, and I don't want to get ripped off." I was touched that she'd come to me for advice on something so important. "I'd be happy to help. What's your budget?" She told me she had saved a surprising amount, enough for a solid down payment on a reliable used car. We spent hours researching models, comparing prices, and talking about what features were worth paying extra for. When she finally found the perfect car, a 2018 Toyota Corolla with low mileage, she asked if I would come with her to the dealership. "I need someone who won't let me make an impulsive decision," she explained. "Someone who'll make me think it through." The old Rebecca would have walked into a dealership alone, fallen in love with something out of her price range, and signed whatever paperwork they put in front of her. This new Rebecca had researched, budgeted, saved, and sought advice. It was a remarkable transformation to witness. At the dealership, she was prepared and confident. When the salesperson tried to upsell her on features she didn't need, she politely but firmly stuck to her plan. When they tried to rush her through the paperwork, she took her time reading everything. I was so proud I could burst. As we drove away from the dealership, her in her new car, me following in mine, I received a text at a stoplight. "Couldn't have done this without you. Thank you for believing I could be better." During our most recent family dinner, our parents commented on how much our relationship has improved. "You two were always either fighting or barely tolerating each other," Mom observed. "Now you actually seem to enjoy spending time together." "We understand each other better now," Rebecca explained. "And we respect each other's boundaries." Dad raised his glass in a toast. "To growth and second chances," he said. Looking back at everything that's happened since that dent in my car, I'm amazed at how one conflict, handled with firm boundaries rather than easy forgiveness, could lead to so much positive change. If I had just let it go like everyone was advising me to do, Rebecca might never have had the wake-up call she needed. I've thought a lot about why this particular incident was the turning point. I think it's because it was so clear-cut. There was visible damage, a clear responsibility, and a straightforward way to make it right. Unlike more complex emotional issues where blame can be shared or responsibility can be murky, this was simple. And that simplicity made it harder for Rebecca to evade accountability. As for me, I've learned that standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish or mean. Sometimes it's the most loving thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for the other person too. By refusing to enable Rebecca's behavior, I gave her the opportunity to grow beyond it. The dent in my car has long since been repaired, but the mark that incident left on our lives is permanent, in the best possible way. It cracked open something that needed fixing, allowed light and air to get in, and created space for healing and growth. Rebecca recently joked that she should get a small dent painted onto her new car as a reminder of how far she's come. "Maybe just a tiny one," she laughed. "Nothing too expensive to fix." I don't think she'll need that reminder, though. The lessons of that day are etched into both of us now, not as scars, but as wisdom we earned together. Final thoughts. So many of you asked for this update, and I appreciate your investment in our story. To those who said I was being too harsh on my sister a year ago, I understand where you were coming from. Family relationships are complicated, and it's hard to gauge the right approach from just one incident. But sometimes holding firm is exactly what's needed. Rebecca herself has said that if I had just forgiven her immediately and covered the repair cost myself, nothing would have changed. She would have learned that she could continue avoiding responsibility because someone else would always step in to fix her mistakes. To those who asked if this one change has completely transformed her, of course not. People don't change entirely, they evolve. Rebecca still has her moments of impulsivity. She still occasionally needs reminders about responsibilities. But the difference is that she now recognizes these tendencies in herself and works to manage them rather than expecting others to work around them. I think the most valuable thing that came out of this whole experience is that we both learned how to communicate better. We can now have difficult conversations without either of us storming off or shutting down. We can express frustration or disappointment without it turning into a huge drama or causing lasting damage to our relationship. And perhaps most importantly, we've both learned that it's possible to love someone deeply while still holding them accountable for their actions. That, I believe, is what real respect looks like. Thank you all for being part of this journey with us. The support and perspective I found here helped me navigate one of the most challenging periods in my relationship with my sister, and I'm grateful for that.